taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week. This is Augmented Reality, presented by the Triple S League.
Good morning and happy 2020 to you all. This is the Augmented Reality Podcast, your source for news, leaks, and insights about games and the gaming industry. January 4th, 2020 is the date. The Saturday edition of the show finally back on schedule after our kind of wonky holiday season. My name is Ash, and I'm here as always with Cybsidian. How's it going?
It's the first show of a brand new decade. Think about that. Think where we're going to be in 10 years from today. I mean, I like to think and realize that, my goodness, maybe we'll finally have rocket cars. Maybe we'll finally have commercial trips to the moon. Maybe we'll finally have that, apocalypse everybody's been talking about for so long. That'd be nice. We're 20 years overdue for a massive apocalypse that people have been, talking about for years.
Yes, exactly. Although it'll probably just be more of the same crap, quite honestly.
Probably.
What's that line from Red vs. Blue when they're doing the whole timeline thing? Oh man. Okay.
You're talking early.
I'm talking early Red vs. Blue. Yeah, where they're doing they're trying to explain the past, present, and future in a play for some reason, and then so one of them is standing on the one side, and he's like, "I'm the past where." Oh yeah, it was Sarge. He's like, "I'm the past where we may not have had super technology, but people worked hard and we had good morals." And then Simmons is on the right, and he's like, "I'm the future where, people are depraved and have no morals, but we have lots of kick-ass gadgets." And then Griff's in the middle, and he's like, "I'm the present. We have no cool stuff and also no morals." Oh man, that was great. Great.
This is actually true. I mean, it progressively gets worse, and then sometimes a bit better. But most of the time, it's just worse.
Yeah, well, every generation though has kind of thought they were the most depraved generation, or that their kids were like, "You kids and your rock and roll," and now it's like, "You kids and your TikTok and your PewDiePies and your rah rah rah." Anyway, so welcome everybody who's active in the live chat. Good to see you all, and glad that you could join us for the first show of the year. So got some interesting stuff to talk about today. As always, we don't try to pick boring topics, but we're
sometimes the news is boring.
Sometimes the news is boring, so we're talking today about Cyberpunk 2077 and how it relates to the cyberpunk genre. We're going to be doing a review of the Disney Plus series The Mandalorian, and of course the Star Wars live-action TV series, which has been too long in coming, and it has been it's a welcome addition to my TV roster. I don't know about you, but I've thoroughly enjoyed that, and a few other things as well. So welcome to the show today. I'm trying to remember. There was something else I was going to mention during the intro, but it slipped my mind now. Please do say hello in the live chat. Send us your questions and comments there as well. We'll read and respond to as many as we can throughout the podcast. And don't forget to slam that like button. It likes it rough, and it tells us and YouTube that you appreciate this content. If you're listening after the fact on one of the audio-only platforms, we're glad you're here as well. We appreciate your likes and follows. It takes us a day or two to get the podcast up to the audio platforms, so if you want the latest info sooner, we encourage you to hit the link in the description and subscribe to the Triple S League YouTube channel, where you'll find all kinds of other gaming content as well as the podcast, including my Celeste Chapter 9 guide, which is coming as soon as I beat that final screen. My goodness. That is a tough chapter, but this is probably not the time to bring it up, but Celeste is about as close to a perfect game as I've ever seen. I can't think of I mean, obviously, it's not going to be everybody's type of game, really difficult platforming, but I can't think of a single thing. Okay, that's not true. There's a couple things where I'm like, why'd they do that? But that's why I say it's as close to a perfect game as I've ever seen. It's just an absolute delight to play, if you like that type of gameplay, the really difficult sort of platforming. Anyway, that's my opinion on the matter. So, during the last podcast, we talked about Y2K a little bit, It's kind of funny how things come back around. So we were talking about how 20 years ago everyone was worried about Y2K, and well, there's a few games that got Y2K'd as the calendar, as our
Switched
computer
over.
clocks switched over to the year 2020. The game WWE 2K20. This was the most notable example. Just stopped working entirely as soon as the year hit 2020, which is really funny because 2020 is in the name of the game, and this, of course, is a game that's been famous for its bugs and ridiculous glitches and things. So yeah, it's a pretty hilarious bug. And then, of course, there were reports that this was happening to other games as well. Jedi Fallen Order was in that, but not for everybody apparently. And then, patches have been rolled out to fix these things. But yeah, that was pretty funny. It was just kind of one of the buggiest games ever released, WWE 2K20, stopped working as soon as the year hit 2020. That's bizarre. How does that even happen?
It's one of those things where it's like well, obviously it was like coding problems and errors and stuff like that. And then there's also like, we have that happen every once in a while with what's called with like legal rights, right? Because they expire at a particular time. And at first that's what I thought. I was like, oh, did they expire because of the music or something like that? Which is really weird. It's like, I guess it's not too weird, but it is kind of odd that you can create something and you distribute it as a finished work of art, and then just suddenly, like, a chunk of it's missing, or the whole thing cannot be shown because part of like imagine if the color blue went on strike and every painting that had a little bit of blue in it was off. And I'm not talking just about the blue. I'm like take the blue out of the RB code, right?
You can't.
And then
Yeah.
suddenly everything is off tinted, right? And because it's like, well, somebody has officially claimed the color blue and is now owning it completely, and anything with blue in it has to be removed. It's like, imagine that stuff
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah. So yeah, it could have been a bug in like this, but it is scary that they can just shut down a game. There was a report about Apple shutting down. Now, what was it? Now, it was a movie. I read a news article recently. I think it was a movie.
Yeah.
Where
No, I heard about this one. I can't remember it off the top of my head.
Some people who on Apple's service, they bought this movie, and then Apple just one day they junked it and replaced it with like a special edition, and then you have to. And the people who had previously bought it can't watch it. Like that's a world we're in now with all digital media. It's disturbing that they can do that.
That is really disturbing because you can collectively delete things from public memory now, and like if the company is big enough, and if that's its only source, like there are people who work at archiving things. There are people who work at creating a collection on their own, and that's good. I think that's important because I don't like the thought of a world where somebody in an office can decide, hey, we're just going to remove this thing, or we're just going to edit this out of existence, and then just somebody's gone. It's like we've seen that a little bit. Like there was some stories going around the holiday period where it's like, no, you can't do that. Like this is seriously not healthy. Like this is seriously problematic. You start deleting stuff like that. What's next? Are you just going to start deleting everything that you don't like? Like, we don't like this, we don't like that. We're just going to remove everything that's ever existed, and then it's like truth becomes a something that is
something that's centrally
optional.
controlled. Very 1984. Very Orwellian, yeah.
Yeah.
This is why, the internet must stay decentralized and in the control of the everyday people. Otherwise, we'll get that kind of crap. Anyway,
With 1984, it's kind of funny. There's this, I watched somebody do a test recently where they compiled a bunch of like the worst stuff from 1984, like the worst stuff, compiled it as a platform. There's a lot of people who were like, "Hey, that sounds really good." It's like, well, you don't think that'll lead to this, and then they said the thing that it obviously led to. No, that's ridiculous. It's like, okay.
these were supposed to be warnings, not instruction manuals.
Yeah, no, it's a literal instruction manual, and you're just like, wow, this is terrible on every level.
Tara K says, in reference to the WWE Y2K thing, maybe the hired goons from 2K got off the hamster wheel. Yeah, that sounds about right. Tara K also, a lot of classic literature is constantly getting edited to remove things that aren't considered appropriate by today's standards, like Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. Yeah, and that, I mean, there's definitely an ethical debate to have there, because it's like, I mean, yeah, there's some stuff in there that's not okay, but he's describing the world as it really was. I mean, yeah, we should probably tell our kids, we should probably expose our kids to that and say, this is how it was, and this is why it was bad, and why it was wrong. And I mean, it's been a while since I read those books, but I think that's the point that Mark Twain was trying to make.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, let us get on to let's talk about the cyberpunk thing. So, speaking of dystopian futures and technology, all of that, we wanted to talk about what is cyberpunk, like, just the genre, the idea, what is cyberpunk? I mean, we know what Cyberpunk 2077 is, we know what Cyberpunk Red is, these are games. But there was an article published in PC Gamer, and I feel like, now, it's not a bad article. It's just doesn't seem to have anything profound to say, well, I mean, really.
There's so there's a couple of these going around, because one site runs the story, everybody else is going to run a copy of the story, basically, and they say, anyways. So first of all, I want to give a shout out to Cyberpunk Red, which had only been available for sale for not even a full year, and through the main place where they sell these things, they ended up outselling every other game that company had ever offered to sell. So huge props to CDPR, to Artel Sorian. Obviously they work in tandem. It's a tandem success, right? And this is what's like lining up for the future. It's not that CDPR had a direct causal relation. It's like The Witcher, how The Witcher is doing. The Witcher for Netflix is making the Witcher games more popular again. They just crossed over 100,000 concurrent players on Steam for The Witcher 3, which is like a seriously old game.
Which is, that's another thing. That's another story I was going to bring up later.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. But right now, it's like we see that when CDPR gets involved in something, they make the thing better. Just everywhere. The success is just better overall. And Artel Sorian has, they put out Cyberpunk Red, and it's just a jumpstart kit. It's not the full kit. It's allowing us to sit down, make things and start the process, right? But it's just the beginning, and we see this now with how they managed to outsell. So, big props to that. And then looking over at this article. So the article is basically, what is is Cyberpunk 2077 going to be a true to form cyberpunk game? So a game that's been made with the creator of the cyberpunk genre at doing constant tweaks and constantly like looking over it. Will that be um true to the cyberpunk vision? It's like somebody talking to Michelangelo and saying, do you have any experience in painting chapels? Because we don't know if you're painting this new chapel here. We have no idea whether or not you're capable of doing this because, well, we just don't know. If it's like, no, he wrote the book on it, literally.
Well, gonna play devil's advocate here because I mean
And I get that.
it's
I
a
get
worthwhile
It's
it's a worthwhile
just-
question to ask. Simply
It
because
is.
cyberpunk is not just something that Mike
Mhm.
Pondsmith developed out of whole cloth. There's things that predated. Like there's a convergence of influences that
Yeah, I've been rewatching Star Trek Next Gen, mostly in preparation for the new Picard show, uh, and hopefully what is the getting the series back on track thing. And I've got some stuff that I want to talk about that today too. Um, just kind of in preparation for it because they've been doing some really interesting things, but just overall it's like I've noticed that there's some cyberpunk there. It's not all just the future is bright colors and that there's a couple of episodes where it's fairly cyberpunky. So yeah, I get that he's not the only creator and it's not the largest thing, but the article did strike me as like, why? like like
well, I
this
mean,
is
he ultimately the writer of this article
Mhm.
ultimately comes to the conclusion that yes, I mean, it definitely is cyberpunk. But here's sort of the premise of it. So, talk in the introduction talking about what is cyberpunk. He says there's a point list of markers you can run through: cybernetic limbs, megacorporations, hackers, neon billboards, Japanese kanji,
Mhm.
Ethernet cables that go straight into your skull, neologisms that sounded cool and futuristic in 1984, but now seem silly and dated. Which, I'm sorry, but that's one of my favorite parts of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Cyberpunk 2077 has them all. Ultimately, though, these are empty signifiers. You could cobble them together. You could cobble together a generic golem out of these things and accurately call it cyberpunk, but that doesn't get at what made these stories exciting in the first place: the sense of a terrifyingly plausible future, not in the hard sci-fi way of future tech,
Mhm.
but more in the way technology warps the society that creates and uses it.
Yeah, and I do want to give him the writer props, him or whatever. Um at least general props as far as that goes, because that is an astute perception of it. Uh and for that reason the main article that like that one article is it's not it's not necessarily something to mock necessarily, because it does bring it up in some ways. There are some other versions of this article here and there where um it's like, just sit down, shut up. Like,
Yeah,
stop,
well,
stop.
we know how
Our-
the media
yeah,
likes to
well,
go negative on cyberpunk, but
we know how the system goes, and it's one of the reasons why if you actually do general news search, those lesser articles aren't the ones that are up at the top at the moment. They've disappeared, as they should, because they're just recycled. This is somebody's recycling a headline and coming up with their own spin on it, and some of them are less than whatever. um yeah, Terra K. That's one of several places that I mentioned that, because that's very, very true. You have that very cyberpunk dystopian thing going on there. So 100%. Um, But just in general, this is true, and you always want to make sure that you are kind of sticking to the original theory. Like, and I had just mentioned, we just mentioned Star Trek, and I want to point out that there's some Star Trek shows right now where they're so bad and so out of canon that I'm like, this is I don't recognize this as actual canon. This is absolutely ridiculous. Um, the only premise that makes what is it, Discovery, I think, the only premise that makes Discovery worthwhile is the concept that it might all be an incorrect timeline, and that just generally the entire thing is just wrong, and that they've been living in this messed up, weird version of reality that isn't correct, and that the end of the show they have to fix it by going back and basically stopping themselves in that whole timeline from existing, which they've tried before. They did that in Enterprise, and it was probably it's what killed Enterprise. And it's just, generally speaking, is one of the worst things. It's like a dream sequence game where it's like you play through a game and you finish a game, and it turns out Mario was sleeping this whole time. It was just a dream.
Okay,
No,
to be fair, in that
like,
game, they told you right off the bat that he was. Of course,
yeah.
that one's confusing because speaking about Mario Brothers 2, the American version, it says if you read the actual text, it says he dreamed he did all this, and then he woke up, and then he saw exactly what he had seen in his dream. But then at the end of the game, he's still sleeping. It's really weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe
No,
it was one of those things where you dream that you wake up, but you're actually still dreaming. Those are the worst because you're like, oh, now I have to get up and like, it's dreaming that you're getting up and going to work is like the worst kind of dream.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the crap I do while I'm awake. Give me like, whatever. Anyway, tangent. All right, go ahead with your take on it.
Yeah, so it's just I hate that kind of a thing. But generally, we can look at a major creator of a genre like Mike Pondsmith, see that he's working on a game and say, well, this is, at the very least, this is a more like up-to-date version of it, right? Because there is some significant difference between like dystopian future uh, that we can see from here versus where people saw it from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and so on. Soylent Green is technically a cyberpunk type world and setting, except it's just not really very cool. And turns out that it's just oh, it's people. Just in case you ever watch that movie, I've just spoiled it for you.
Spoiler for like a 300-year-old movie.
It's got Charlton Heston in it. Like, dude's been dead for a long time, and like, my goodness, yeah. Great film, great actor, but it has been out for a while. Obviously, it's like, we can look at this and generally say, no, this is an update to the concept, and we're updating the perspective. And you can kind of say that it didn't. No, I think that's a fair thing. Never mind on that one. Just in general, it's like if Mike is creating this and running with this, then I think we're pretty much good on what will be seen in the future from the cyberpunk genre, and that this will be, again, it's kind of the update to the stuff, and yeah, and that's a good thing.
Well, and there's no question that, like, whether you credit him as the creator or not, he there's no question Mike Pondsmith understands Cyberpunk. And of course, he understands Cyberpunk 2020, which is what this game is based on. This is really the year of Cyberpunk, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's the year that the original game was set in, and or that general era. Plus, Cyberpunk 2077 is coming out this year. So anyway, he definitely understands the source material because he created it, and the genre in general. I mean, he definitely refined it, or sort of made it, packaged it in a popular format. And there's definitely influences that came before, of course. Blade Runner. The Mad Queen told me that if something is to be considered cyberpunk, it needs to feel like Blade Runner, and which is interesting. That's kind of what I mean. That's a simplistic way to look at it, but that's kind of that's a definitive sort of cyberpunky thing that is unrelated to Mike Pondsmith, but definitely he probably was influenced by the book that movie is based on and the related. I was reading about the history of the genre yesterday. It's really interesting. Like, there's a lot of, like with any genre of anything, there's a lot of influences that sort of converge to create what ultimately is considered the epitome of that genre, or the defining central theme of that, or what that genre looks like. But anyway, bottom line, Mike Pondsmith definitely understands cyberpunk, and that's why we've been emphasizing that he's been working so heavily with CD Projekt on this, because that's important. That means that they're not just they didn't just buy this IP and are running off in their own direction with it, like some companies do. Looking at you, Disney. They are working with the guy who created the IP. They didn't buy it; they licensed it, obviously, but because Pondsmith's company still owns it. But anyway, yeah, that Mike Pondsmith, and it's also notable that when he was shown early drafts of things in the game, he said, this is my vision sort of come to life. It really matched what he was picturing. So that's super encouraging that we're going to get to see sort of firsthand what Mike Pondsmith considers cyberpunk to be and to look like and feel like. So that's really exciting. But there is one important point in this article. It's not a point he directly makes, but it's actually more of an inference. But he says, for better or worse, the game will likely overwrite the public understanding of what cyberpunk means. This is a genre whose boundaries are defined by precious few texts, and no straight-up cyberpunk work basically will have the reach that this game is going to have, he says. But then he goes on to say, so yes, Cyberpunk 2077 is cyberpunk. Duh, it's right there in the title. This is the one part of the article where I'm like, what are you even talking about? I thought the whole point was you were asking the question, is this cyberpunk? And the fact that the word cyberpunk is in the title doesn't mean it's necessarily cyberpunk.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that I have found is becoming increasingly prevalent. Just because something or somebody calls themselves something doesn't mean they are that thing. I'll just leave that there. But that's, a game I could create a side scroller with starring a pink bunny that and jumping on fluffy clouds and call it Cyberpunk Bunny Exciting Simulator. That doesn't mean it's a cyberpunk game. So,
well, it's kind of like that. So I picked up one of these dollar games from Steam that it's clearly using cyberpunk as a crutch to make sales on a game that never would have existed by itself, right? And it's one of these like funny things. Let's see if I can remember. Yeah, it's Night City 2177.
Night
And
City
it's
2177. Nice.
yeah. So it's obviously a ploy. It's nothing but a very very small like simulator of a small tiny little city, one that you've actually seen before. It's basically just like this little tech demo that somebody did a few years ago, and I think it got to the point where it was kind of like allowed to be like public, or you could buy it for like, it's an asset flip. They bought it for like a couple bucks, and then they put it out and they hoped that it would make them a couple $100, right? That's the kind of thing. Don't buy this game. It's complete garbage. But I bought it just so that I could like, poke fun at it
Just see what it is, yeah.
to kind of, to kind of walk around in it. It's like, yeah, technically it's got a cyberpunk aesthetic to it, but there's no actual gameplay. There's no actual like anything other than just walking around looking at a very small, single. I think there's like two little areas and a hallway that connects them. That's it. That's the extent of this thing. We were gonna mock it ruthlessly before, but it was one of those projects that kind of got away from us, because it's, at the end of the day, it's not exactly something that we, it's not high grade material. It would be like, it's like mocking something that you shouldn't mock, because it's just like it's too bad for it to be mocked, because you're like, oh man, come on, like really yeah. Yeah.
Azure Eyes says, haven't tuned in a while. Excited for CDPR to reveal more info on Cyberpunk 2077 soon. Absolutely, aren't we all? Let's see. Navarro says, isn't Cyberpunk more or less sci-fi? And from what I can tell, sci-fi in general is more popular than fantasy. Oh, this is part of a conversation that's happening in chat, I see. Okay, cool. Let's see. Manny Calavera. I want more 2077 info, videos, tune info, story stuff, leaks, juicy news.
Yes, that's going to start coming out hard and heavy here in just a very short while, actually. So, Manny, just keep it here. There's going to be all kinds of juicy info. Most of the staff actually at CDPR is still on their vacation, especially the ones that deal with the public. They're still actually on vacation, and they don't get back into the office until, I think it's I want to say the 7th or the 8th, somewhere around there. It's like they don't even get back there, and then most of them aren't actually like fully back until sometime after the 13th. So, but once that hits, they are in. Well, I mean, the game is launching in a few months, so they are constantly busy from that point onward until like well into, well past April, because of all the stuff that they're going to be doing, and then of course all the stuff that's coming up, because they're going to have, the success of the game. I was talking to another YouTuber last night. It's like they're going to be busy. It's not just, it's not like other games where there's the launch. CDPR's general tactic has always been to maintain consistent sales after the game goes out. Like right now, it's partially tied to the whole Netflix show, but right now they are experiencing a big boost of sales for The Witcher 3. So it's like, that's actually important, and so this is a strategy that they have in general, is to actually like spend time connecting people with their game and connecting their game to people, and they're going to keep on doing this as they go through. So
yeah. And so The Witcher, it set a record very recently, and it may have, you were saying 100,000 concurrent players. What this article that came out on December 30th was saying, that within the past 24 hours, the peak concurrent players for The Witcher 3 was 94,651.
Oh, it set a new one.
And so it's setting new. But the interesting thing is that at its launch, it was less than that. You know, the game peaked at around 92,000 players, and now, just recently, and it's undoubtedly has a lot to do, of course, with the Netflix Witcher series, which is another very good, very excellent TV series that's come out. Between The Witcher and The Mandalorian, it's given me some good quality shows to watch over the holidays, which is fantastic.
I think I mentioned that at the families and a sibling of mine, it's like, oh man, everybody watching The Witcher? That's great. And I'm like, yeah, talk about this, that, and the other thing, and like the lore and stuff. It's like, wow, did you read the books? I'm like, no, I didn't read the books. Like, how do you know so much about it then? Well, there's these little things called video games that have been around for a really long time, and well, been around for a really long time. So it's kind of funny to me. Like, I laugh considerably.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's really interesting to see. It's nice to see, it's nice to see a good game company getting a nice little boost from this. And it's just like it's a really good set of stories. It's a really good. It's just an excellent IP. It's just an excellent. What do you want to call it? IP is such a technical term. The Witcher, world is really cool. It's a really good show. It's a really good show. Not a perfect show, but it's a really good show, and I'm looking forward to, if they carry on with a bigger budget in a second season, that I'm looking forward to seeing what they can accomplish. But anyway, just getting back to a couple other things in the chat here. Tarika Winnigan says, "For the love of God, nobody make that game, please. What, you don't want Cyberpunk Bunny Poofy Clouds exciting game? I mean, what's wrong with you? That sounds like a blast." Nintendo. Oh man, the chat window really bugs me because when I scroll close to the bottom, it snaps to the bottom, and then it skips a whole bunch of messages, and then I have to scroll up again.
You can't technically see like the for on our control side. It's like you can't see the chat messages that are immediately above the current ones. So it's like so everybody do a favor and throw in like you have to be careful because you don't want to get your Google account permanently deleted for spam, like what happened with Markiplier's.
Yeah, that was bad. Nikoro Tondo.
You don't want spam messages, but yeah.
Yeah. Nikoro Tondo 1991 saying, "Some people are using the What Culture article to say Cyberpunk 2077 is not Cyberpunk because it's too bright." Yeah, that was an article that just... There's been two articles out of What Culture that I just feel like they don't understand what Cyberpunk is. Tarika Winnigan, "Have y'all noticed the release dates for April 16th? Very small for other games." Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of other games that want to compete with Cyberpunk. Like, it's a juggernaut in terms of the hype. There are a few that are surprisingly close. But, Polly's 911, "As Cyberpunk comes out, don't forget to say goodbye to your friends and loved ones. You close yourself in your gamer cave not to be seen for a few months." Yeah, exactly. Let's see now. Oh yeah, I was going to say, I bet Lalaya was so happy when when we were finally done doing our ARG streams with the other community channels, because then we left her the hell alone after that. we were constantly. She was on, and she was great. She's always great, but she's on vacation, but also still tuning into our live streams and like taking our questions. And I could see like on Discord, I could see she was like just playing games and relaxing because it was like, yeah, Lalaya is playing World of Warcraft or whatever, right? I'm like, I don't want to bother her, but need to know this. Ah.
Like, and trust me, you don't want to interrupt the lie when she's playing a round of World of Warcraft.
Yeah,
Because you could be doing some big raid or big group content, and you distract them too much, and suddenly they get in trouble. Like really miss a good MMO. But just in general, it's like they've been doing really good with this, and I'm excited to see what they've got coming, because I guarantee you they've got something cool coming. So,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get too don't want to talk too much about this stuff, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. You are listening to the Augmented Reality podcast. We're going to get on to Star Wars stuff right away here. And we love seeing everybody so active in the live chat. If you want to keep the conversation going after the live broadcast, we welcome you to join our Discord community. You can find the link in the description below. It's a place where you can chat with us and other Triple S community members about all the things we love to talk about and stay up to date about everything we're doing here at the Triple S League. Click the link below to join, and be sure to say hi to us in the welcome channel. And while you're down in the description, check out our affiliate link for Toink Toys. Christmas may be over, but it is never too late to get yourself a late Christmas present. If with all that money that you get back from returning all the bad presents that people get you. Wow, that's a cynical take. Wow. Anyway, so if you're looking to just splurge on something for yourself or a gift for somebody else who is of the nerdy persuasion into gaming, fantasy, sci-fi, all of that kind of stuff that that our audience is into on this channel, check out the affiliate link in the description. Toink Toys has awesome collectibles, costumes, games, and more. They've got those mystery boxes that we've done some unboxing videos of on our channel here. But you can read, on their website there, you can read exactly what's in the box. So it's not like a loot box where you don't know what you're getting, or we've bought a couple at conventions before, and then you don't know what you're getting. But anyway, so you'll know what's coming in it. But if you're getting it for somebody else, of course, it'll be a big surprise. Or you could buy it without reading the description and surprise yourself. The law of surprise. If you've been watching The Witcher, you'll know what I'm referencing there. Anyway, so yeah, check that out. It's another way you can support the channel and get some cool stuff for yourself. So on to Star Wars. So we're going to talk about the Mandalorian right away. But before getting into that, I wanted to talk about an interesting aspect. I found this article about how it's called The Rise of Skywalker recanonizes some old game characters, and it's interesting. So, I mean, for all the Rise of basically the whole entire universe seems to agree that the Rise of Skywalker is bad. Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure there are aliens on like Rigel 5 who don't even know what Star Wars is. Or maybe they're living it, and they agree with us that the Rise of Skywalker is bad.
And I mean, it started with a terrible second movie.
Well, yeah,
and I don't want to put it all on J.J. Abrams. It wasn't entirely his fault. He in the first movie, he tried really, really hard to set up a storyline, and that storyline got trashed, destroyed, kicked out, and basically like ruined and you kind of saw it. And in order for JJ to fix the original, direction, he had to do a lot of stuff and a lot of content and try to ham fist a lot of things together.
Well, that's a lot of the reviews are saying, like, it was like
Mhm.
two movies in one because he was trying
Yeah.
to like fix everything from The Last
Yeah.
Jedi and then wrap up the series, Anyway, so it was a mess. But one interesting aspect of it that may be a positive thing or may not. I mean, Saib has an interesting take on this, but it sounds like they might actually be recanonizing certain things that were in the quote unquote scrapped expanded universe. And so one of the things is the soldiers of the Sith troopers, this is something in the movie, are divided into legions of 5,000 troops each, and each legion is named after ancient Sith lords. Among the names mentioned are some prominent ones, some more obscure ones, but a few that were part of sort of the expanded universe canon came to the front. One of the most interesting ones being Darth Revan, who was both hero and villain within the Star Wars universe and had a prominent role in Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic.
Mm-hmm. We got a super chat. Yes, and I want to, if you can read that one.
Oh yeah.
So read this super chat because this kind of affects what we're going to talk about here. So.
Oh, okay, yeah. Polly's 911 with the super chat, the very generous super chat. Thank you so much. After, excuse me. After the Mandalorian success, I'm interested in Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic series and in the making, or the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic series in the making. And Diego Luna and Alan Tudyk will return as Cassian Andor and K2SO for the new ST series. ST series? Was that supposed to be SW series? Anyway, thank you so much for that. And yeah, so okay, is the Knights of the Old Republic series, is that greenlit? Is that going?
There's a lot of rumors about it. Right now the theory is that they screwed up the new timeline considerably, and that the executives over at Disney are furious. They're furious with Kathleen Kennedy. They're furious with the director of the second movie. They're not really happy with the work that JJ did. Partially because it was basically like his first one was basically a shot by shot remake of the original movie, and like I had to again I had to explain this to somebody recently. It's like, yeah, no, it's a shot by shot remake. And they're like, what are you talking about? It was really good. I'm like, yeah, line up the two movies, play them together, and you basically have the same movie. In some cases, even the scenes line up like exactly as is. So, this is not exactly a lot of skill involved in this. This is a lot of, you know, garbage, whatever. So the rumor on the street is that they're looking at going for or trying to rebuild the good faith with the audience by focusing on spending the next three movies are going to be about is going to be basically be the movie canon version of the Old Republic, and that will open up a couple of different paths for them so that they can focus on the ancient timeline or the newer timeline, and whatever happens to be more popular at the time is basically what they're going with. And to this extent, they've started to recanonize some of the older lore, because it turns out that and Kathleen said it herself is that they had destroyed. Well, she didn't say this, but the main thing is that they destroyed. They just took a gigantic crapola all over the current lore, and by removing so much of the legend stuff, by just throwing stuff out left and right, and by just refusing to connect anything to anything. And so what they've decided to do now is, obviously, they what they realize is that they need actual lore, to build these series on. And you can look at the comic, or not the comic, the cartoon, which I didn't know this until just recently. The director of the Mandalorian directed several episodes of the cartoon, as far as I understand. Like, they were connected. They're the same people. And that we have this big reveal at the last few minutes of the Mandalorian, about a particular object that is really, really, really connected to the cartoon. And it's like it is a 100%, like, this is from this thing. There's no mistaking it. There's no nothing. It's like here's the thing, da 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 da, and everybody's like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, and everybody's losing their minds, which is a good thing. And I think that they realize that this is what they need to do. This is what they needed to do. I would have sat down and kept about good 80% of the lore from the what's considered now legends. I would have canned some of it, because some of it just doesn't translate very well to new movies, and some of the storylines you want to tweak and whatever. And that's totally good. But yeah, they need that, and I think they're realizing this now. So they're going. I suspect that the new director is going to be somebody who's been doing Star Wars content for a while now, some of the smaller stuff that's been very successful at it. And this is where we're going to see the new director of the new film series kind of get put into place. And it's going to be somebody who's actually an actual fan, who actually has respect for the original content. But I think just where everything's at right now between George Lucas and Disney and all this other stuff, I think basically they've sat down and they've said, okay, what we did isn't working. We need to get, like, Mandalorian proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that there is absolutely no way you can put it that Star Wars can be popular. It can not only be popular, it can do ridiculously well. And that the people who screwed up on the movies legitimately screwed up because they were bad at their job. They didn't screw up because people had, Star Wars fatigue. They didn't screw up because of all these other fake reasons that get put out there. They screwed up because they're just bad at their job, and that you needed to have somebody else in that field, and that you needed to have somebody else take that over and walk in and run the show. So what they're looking, I think what they're going to do is they're going to get, I think that the current director of The Mandalorian and a couple other core people that have been working on Star Wars for a very long time, I think they're going to be put in charge going forward. And I think this whole, like, yeah, we're going to have Rian Johnson in, then we're going to have J.J. Abrams. I don't think you're going to see that going forward. I think you're going to see a singular director who's going to be put in charge of the long-term vision, and has a connection to the current lore and the current stuff created, so that they can actually create a complex, deep lore and deep movie. Because what they've discovered is that when you have a movie, or when you have a show, or when you have anything that is seriously connected, like seriously well connected, and the content is spread out really well, and you have crazy deep lore that has really complex, like, things, and those movies do really, really well, regardless of whether or not the mass of the audience is actually paying attention to the finer details of the lore. And this gives you a lot more to work with. Like, I would say that the story of the new Star Wars show, new Star Wars movies is about as thick as paper. You know, it's a single sheet of paper. There's just nothing to it. You know, like they can't be bothered to reference half of the galaxy. You know, apparently half of the galaxy isn't doing it. Isn't even doesn't even exist really, and instead you've got a bunch of this other stuff. So yeah, I don't think it's. I think this is the new direction, and we see this because this also works its way into sales for additional content. Like right now, they're making more money off of like these new older characters from the Old Republic timeline in their games, like the stupid Star Wars collectible Star Wars Galaxy game, the mobile app one, not the old MMO one, but the mobile app one. Is they're making more money off of like reintroducing old characters there than they are on the whole, like, you know, some of the new characters toys that they have in, you know, in the real world that you can collect. It's like there's a couple of toys from a couple of characters in the movies that have sold so little that it's like they wasted money, you know, making them. Like there's a couple of toys where they can't move them enough. They have an entire warehouse full of these things, and none of it's selling because nobody's interested in it. So, yeah.
Hmm.
Long-winded, but yeah,
No,
that's about it.
that's good stuff. That's good stuff. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that about that. Yeah, it's like, okay, so this game, you know, we need to make more money off this. Let's just throw in old characters that we had decanonized
Mm-hmm.
because, you
And I
know,
mean,
oh, people are gonna go crazy and buy it, and of course they are. They
yeah.
actually are.
So
Just shows
the
that
Star Wars,
people
yeah,
love and they care about that expanded universe and that old canon.
the Star Wars, the Galaxies games, the little mobile game, they introduced HK-47, and people went nuts. It was apparently one of the biggest money makers. HK-47 outsold all of the new Ray stuff from the get go. So from the beginning, HK-47 outsold and continues to outsell all Ray and associated new characters. And it doesn't matter if they make them more powerful. It's just the fact that people want the old. They want the lore that was created, that has depth, that has solid meaning behind it. They're tired of this whole, like, you know, hey, we're gonna give you absolutely nothing that you want, and characters that, Tara, okay, you're right, but you know what? We can't say the name because if we do, that sets off a trigger in the algorithm. Like that's how screwed up this whole thing is. And I mean, there's been all kinds of stuff that people have been discovering, and you know, people have been scrubbing the reviews and all this kind of stuff, and you know, a lot of that looks conspiratorial, and you know, in some cases, like, yeah, um but in other, like, in some cases, yes, it's conspiratorial, but it's also true. So, you know, I think overall this is why they're starting to look at going in a new direction. And um I suspect that the only reason why they kept Kathleen Kennedy on was to kind of reset the thing. Either that, or she's got dirt on somebody. If she stays in for the next trilogy, I'll be very shocked. But at that point, we'll kind of know. We'll sit there and go, it's because she's got dirt on somebody. That's why she's in her job. Because I mean, nobody could take, like, there's an abject failure in every way, shape, and form. It's like the toy sales are down, movie sales are down, despite massive prop ups. It's just everything is just falling apart, except for everything she's not involved with. That means that she's doing a bad job. Maybe she's got dirt on Baby Yoda. Ah, Baby Yoda.
Hmm.
Baby Yoda is, I mean, are we going to talk spoilers? Because I have a realization that is going to make everybody lose their mind.
Well, okay, it depends what it is. I mean, everybody knows, even if you haven't watched the show, everybody knows about Baby Yoda, which is, by the way, I mean, it's sort of an affectionate nickname for this character. Uh, the character is not called Baby Yoda in the show.
Yeah.
It is they only refer to him as the child. They just call him
Yeah.
the child. But
Some of he's so adorable, and it's so like so Baby Yoda merchandise is selling more. I think I need to check this out, but it's either on track to or has already surpassed all of the toys regarding the new trilogy. So think about that for a few minutes. It's like it's been like what 2-3 months tops now, where a single character in a new show has outsold all other things Star Wars related in the new series after it's been out for 4 or 5 years. Like, wow, Kathleen, you're so bad at your job that you can't even like again, this is all you do is you make something cute, you make something adorable, and you just film it right, and you have a thing that allows you to print money. You can't even do that. Oh, I'm not a big fan of Kathleen.
well, I mean,
I
the thing is,
here's
you
my
have to
prediction.
do it right. You have to do it right. Otherwise, you get Ewoks and you get those stupid puffin things from the Last Jedi.
Here's my here's my prediction for the future. At some point in the future, I think there will be a little certain Baby Yoda or teen Yoda or young adult Yoda, whatever you want to call it. At some point, there's going to be a little tiny Yoda with a little tiny Mandalorian mask on. And I suspect strongly that this will sell and move um, more money than anybody has ever seen when it comes to toys. Because that would just at this point, that would just be absolutely adorable.
Absolutely. Yeah, those
Like,
things. Yeah, especially if it's like one of those Funko Pop style things. Funko
oh,
Pop Baby Yoda. There you go.
not even that. Not even that. I suspect this is in general. This is going to be um, yeah. This is just going to be a thing that's going to happen in the future because it's I think it's where it's going. I really think after watching the last episode, I think I think that's where it's headed. With the whole necklace thing and with the whole just like you're part of the family now. Basically, what's going on there? It's like yeah, little. The Mandalorians have always been one of the coolest characters within the one of the coolest races. Like it's always been ever since the original movies. It's just Boba Fett has always just been really cool, and I'm so glad that they're focusing on that because that like and coming from somebody who played the originals, right? Uh the KOTOR 1, KOTOR 2. It's like I really always wanted the Mandalorians to be better. And I'm hoping that in the new future that one of the big things will happen is that the Mandalorians will have a resurgence because I feel that it's one of these things where it's like you really want that to become a massively resurgent group, and you really have it with the young viewers because the Mandalorians and one of the reasons why we have a Mandalore show right now is because of the cartoons and how they've set up the Mandalorians there, and apparently apparently we can kind of see from this last episode that they've kind of had a little bit of a hard time, but maybe there's more Mandalorians out there. I mean, it is space. It's pretty massive. And there's this running theory that, yeah, actually, we could probably have an entire planet of Mandalorians somewhere, either in hiding or something. And I think this is a good thing, because if we can get, because it's like, and this is where Kathleen's a pure idiot, a pure knuckle dragging idiot. If you want to sell games, if you want to sell games, if you want to sell like the experience, which they do at like as part of the current setup at the Disney World and Disneyland Star Wars theme park areas, is like it's all about you being a Jedi. Well, you kind of screw that in the foot when you giant screwdriver to the foot when you're sitting there and you're like, no, there's only one Jedi in the entire universe now. Ooh, it's like, no, shut up, sit down. No, because the community and the people who want to have that connection, it's like, I'm going to be a Jedi. Oh, well, you can't be a Jedi because there's only one Jedi. Well, I want to be a Sith. Well, no, you can't because there's only one Sith. You can't do that. It's like this doesn't work. It just doesn't work. You have to incorporate more. You have to have more stuff. And so I think they've kind of realized this now. They wanted to do it, in other ways, but now they finally like, okay, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. It's going to work. Yeah, Ashoka could do that. Saw him once in the chat. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Ashoka can take that over, because this is a character. I mean, they hated the character so much that in the first draft of episode 3 they killed her off, because they're like, oh, this character's not going anywhere. And then the George was like, oh well, maybe we can do something with her. And then like fast forward a few years, and boom, suddenly you have like who's one of the most popular characters amongst new Star Wars fans, like young Star Wars fans that are under 15, is Ashoka. It's the whole Mandalorian thing that they have going on in the comics, or again, the cartoons. And that's what's been running and literally the only thing that's been saving the series like right now as far as the youngest generation goes. And so this is something that they need to get their butts in gear with this, and they need to like go, okay, this is important. We're gonna make this happen. So yeah.
Mm.
So yeah. So I mean, again, I'm really, really hoping that they don't screw this up in the future. But as everybody knows, it's kind of at this point we're kind of, we kind of realize that there's a good chance that they're gonna bungle this again at some point in the future, right? But let's just hope that it's not as bad as what they've done currently. But I think they have 2 new timelines that they're going to follow. They're going to follow they're going to follow Baby Yoda, and they're also going to follow they're probably going to end up following the Old Republic series, Revan specifically, because Revan's one of these characters where like, okay, Revan was bad for a while, then they were good, and and then they're kind of in a gray area. It's like that's a far more interesting storyline, because like, why was the original series so so good? Because you had Vader and you had Luke, and you had a redemption arc. And this is, I mean, you have this showing up in Mandalorian. You have this like kind of like redemption arc thing, and that's what I think, that droid. Oh, that droid. He's so cool. He's so cool. I don't want to spoil anything. But
Let's not get into spoilers. There might be. So when we'll get on to our sort of actual review of the show here, there may be minor. We'll keep the spoilers very, very minor. But there's so much cool stuff in the Mandalorian show, and I agree. Here's hoping that they don't say, "Oh, this is popular. Let's take it and screw it up," like we did with the movies that were also popular at one point. But it's a fantastic show. I mean, it's got its flaws, but I thoroughly enjoyed watching it, and I mean, it's well worth the Disney Plus subscription for a month if you want to binge it. Even if you're not into all the princess movies and stuff, which I'm not, but I have, a couple of daughters. So, we we do have that Disney Plus subscription, which I think they're making use of right now as I do the podcast. But anyway, the show immediately hooked me because it was right from the first part of the first episode. Felt like Star Wars. It felt like Star Wars on a smaller scale than the movies. Like the movies are these grand epics where it's like destroying planets and you have to demolish this super weapon and this kind of a thing. The show, of course, just by its very nature, is limited to a smaller scope of the Star Wars universe. But it felt like Star Wars just immediately. But it didn't do that by just, oh, we're gonna set this on in some familiar location. But I mean, as you go through the show, there are familiar locations, there are familiar types of creatures. Like you've got Jawas showing up everywhere. In fact, they're very central to the plot of the second episode. And it's got me wondering, like, how are there Jawas on like all these different planets, and they've got their same, sand crawler kind of a deal. It's like, on this planet, it's not a sand crawler; it's just a thing. It's a crawler, but it's not on sand. So some questions that got circulating in my mind from that, but it was very cool. And of course, there is the child who is the same species as Yoda. So it's not Yoda. I know I saw, as I was doing some research, people have been searching, is that Yoda? Like, is baby Yoda actually Yoda? Or, da-da-da. No. So the Mandalorian is set 5 years after Return of the Jedi. So Yoda is old and dead at this point. He's a Force ghost now. But this child is is of the same species. But it's a very, I won't get into that because it's mysterious. Nobody knows what it is. Yoda's species is not exactly, there aren't a ton of them that you see throughout the movies and shows and things. So, anyway, the child, of course, is very central to the plot of the entire series, and I'm so glad they went with the old school effects with it. They did it. They filmed it with puppeteering, and then they were also going to film like a secondary set of shots with a blank that they could put. They could create some CG if they needed to. I'm so glad they didn't.
I think. Well, yeah, I think you're right here, and I do like the cuteness of it as the puppet.
It's done very well. Like it's
the puppet. Well, puppetry has always been such a core thing, right? It's always been such a core thing to the experience of Star Wars, and I mean, George Lucas and we had such a connection with the Jim Henson and them from the beginning, I think. So it's something where it's like, yes, this really needs to happen. Polly's 911, thank you again. So very kind of you. I want the story in the video game about Empire for once, where you do not end up as a generic good guy at the end of it, like Battlefront 2. Am I asking too much? No, you're not. What you're asking for is what the story of Star Wars is all about, and especially when you look at some of the games, right? Like Jedi Academy is one of my favorite games. like literally, it's literally in my top 10 list of like all time favorites. Um, not and it is by far my favorite Star Wars game because it's got everything in it. Probably Jedi Knight Outcast is probably like number two as far as my Star Wars games go. But no, Academy is by far one of my, I probably even in my top five really, but just because how of how it was and what you could do and the storyline that you had and the chance to like you could become a Dark Lord if you wanted to and it's like and I really wish and I had always hoped that there was going to be a follow up where you can kind of follow up and see where your choices led and kind of play it from that new direction and that kind of stuff, but also Old Republic. Just like I like the Old Republic 1 and 2. um I think Academy beats it out just a little bit because of the combat system. The combat systems are different. If we're talking turn-based, obviously one of my favorite turn-based games is the uh, you know Old Republic 1 and 2. But just from a pure action combat format, definitely Outcast, or not Outcast, Academy, because just the stuff that you could do in it, the combos that you could do, you actually felt like an actual, you're not just some, the way that they do it in the newest games, it's just like wave your lightsaber around randomly, just spam attacks. It's like, nah, no. In Academy, you could become a master of the lightsaber, and you could sit there and duel people one after the other, and you just killed them all if you knew the combos and how to like blade lock and then how to like turn that around and then kill somebody and like whip around them and then do a backstab, like your character's looking forward, but you take the lightsabers and you just stick them and you just like bzz, like I don't know why I did that. Like you it's like it's a back attack, but it's not like you're not attacking somebody from their back. You are, but you're doing it from, what I'm talking about, right? The combo move.
Nope.
For some reason I cannot verbalize it. So in Academy and Outcast, you could run past somebody and then do a combo where your character attacks backwards, like the whole putting the lightsaber through somebody with your back to them, and
Yeah.
then
Okay.
yeah, so you're in a fight, they get behind you or you get behind them, and you're either your backs are together or they're coming up against you, and you just like lightsaber backstab, but again not from your back, you're attacking backwards. Like you could do that. You can't do that in the new games. Like that concept is so foreign to anybody over at that studio that I wonder if they I'm going on a tangent here that's not working. Yeah, no. The ability to play the bad guy is exactly 100% legitimate, and it's something that's always been there. I mean, you could do it in the original, not the original Dark Forces, but the next one. So yeah,
Yeah, the Jedi Knight series. Yeah, you could go evil if you wanted to. I can't remember if that was a thing in Academy, but in
yeah, it was in the Academy, it was in Outcast, and it was also in Jedi Knight, the original Jedi Knight.
yeah, there was a cutscene endings for if you became evil, you would like
Yeah, Dark
bec-
Forces 2 had it as well.
yeah, yeah, exactly. You'd become, and that's back in the day when they actually filmed live action cutscenes.
Mhm.
Like they actually used actors for the cutscenes in the original Jedi Knight. That was interesting. Astrojit says yes, it was in all the Jedi Knight games. That makes sense. I just couldn't remember specifically if it was in. But yeah, like it depended on where you allocated your Force powers, and if you chose the dark side powers, then you know you'd go more to the dark side. So anyway, I don't know why certain powers are dark side and certain powers are light side, but I'm sure there's something in the lore that explains that. But anyway, back to the Mandalorian. So, as I said, definitely feels like Star Wars. Definitely feels like a part of the Star Wars universe that we don't see a lot. Sort of more day to day life. You know, smaller. You could tell like it was. I mean, the show had a limited budget, and hopefully their budget goes up. Apparently, for
Oh
like
yeah. The budget's going up.
there has been a second season ordered, and I'm sure that the budget will go up. But apparently, they for the last episode, there's a lot of stormtroopers in the last episode. Apparently, they called in members of the 501 Legion. That was interesting.
Well, I mean that, and they had this two guys on the speeders. Those are like, I think they're comedians, which obviously the scene was pretty funny, but
Oh yeah, there's this hilarious scene with two scout troopers just bantering right at the beginning of the final episode. It is so funny. Yeah, and it's like a couple of comedy actors. You never see their faces, but at the end of that scene, I told my wife, I'm like, I gotta look up who played those troopers because that was fantastic. Yeah, so like they did a lot. There's a lot of references to the
there's a lot of references to tropes in general.
yeah, like the stormtroopers. Oh man, there's a hilarious moment.
The can like sitting like 10 feet away.
Oh yeah,
And
they're
they're
trying
just
to
like,
shoot, but also there
trying to
was
shoot it. They just can't hit it. It's like,
yeah, there's other jokes made about stormtroopers being bad at or like having terrible aim and things like that. There's a reference to there's one guy's like, why do you never take your helmet off? What are you, a Gungan? You said no want nobody to see your face or something like that. It was so funny. Anyway, I won't give away all the funny moments, but yeah, like it was part of this larger universe. You could really feel it was part of this larger universe, even though like you could tell because of the budget limitations, it was kind of did not have, it didn't have this epic feel that the movies have. It was still sort of, it had its own sort of epic. You felt like you were in this. Everything was larger than life, which is a requirement of Star Wars, basically. Yeah, it was Star Wars through and through. And between that and the Last Jedi, or not Last Jedi, Jedi Fallen Order, the game, it really 2019 was really a mixed bag when it came to Star Wars. The movie, the terribleness of the movie was very discouraging, but we got this really good game and we got this really good TV series, a live action Star Wars TV series, which I've been waiting for a very long time. And it's given me some hope for Star Wars for the future. Now, there are a few things about The Mandalorian that I could nitpick, and there's one very confusing. This one I was talking to Cyber about it last night, and I can't really bring it up here because it would be major spoilers for the show. But it has to do with the villain's motivation that just there's just something that just did not make sense. That kind of runs through the whole series that I was left confused about at the end, and that just grates on me. So maybe if anyone's interested, we might.
I think you're overthinking that one because again, like I looked at it and I'm like, I don't see where you're getting this from.
Because
like, it's clear that it's either like it's clear that there's either like multiple people after it, or there's just some character defects that play
Well, I
into
mean,
it?
yes and no. No, I mean, it's still maybe a little bit of that, but there was just a few things. Maybe we can talk about this on the Discord server if anyone is
Mhm.
interested in discussing the finer plot points of the Mandalorian. We can go into spoiler territory more easily there. I don't want to. Yeah, it's too spoilerish for the podcast, but the show is not without its some writing flaws. Like it's overall like incredibly well written. The characters are great. The Mandalorian character is fantastic, even though you know he always has his helmet on. I The acting is well done. You can sense what kind of emotional state he's in at any given moment. The acting's well done. The other characters, the supporting characters, are very, quite good. And it's got it's got some innovative. It innovates on classic things in the Star Wars universe, but not in ways that are ridiculous. And overall, just a really really solid show. It does have its faults in there are some points where the writing seems very convenient, or there was one point in particular where I was like, this episode is just so full of cliches in the dialogue, but that didn't happen very often. I think it was somewhere around
I think that's part of the director's style, is to do cliches and funny bits. It's a point of trying to make there be humor.
I'm
So
not talking about humor. I'm talking about just just cliched dialogue that it's almost like you can predict the line that's coming next, and it's lines that you've heard in 100 different movies in similar
yeah, I
situations. And
think that's, again, I look at that and I say, no, no, that is essentially that is essentially them giving an homage to the um just that's just his style, like that. It's just his, the way he normally works stuff, and I don't
well,
I don't
I'm not
hate.
sure if we're talking about the same situation, but anyway, I despise cliches in writing. So that's just maybe
Mhm.
it's just a personal beef, but yeah, there was you know your typical things. There's a few events that seem altogether just too convenient, but that's typical stuff that happens. Overall, very very high quality show, very good writing. There was one episode where I was like, I didn't like that episode. It just didn't. It seemed out of sync with the rest of the series. But the other 7 episodes, all of them were really good, and the last couple episodes were really really good as well. Even though the last episode, the season finale, felt like there was a lot crammed into it. I feel like the series could have used 2 more episodes to kind of wrap up, but they didn't have that obviously. So, but that's a minor complaint as well. All the stuff about the Mandalorians, their culture, the lore behind it, was really really neat. I mean, I don't know how he doesn't go crazy having to keep his helmet on all the time. Like, doesn't it get hot in there? Like, yeesh. But they're committed to this way of life, which leads to another question about Boba Fett and Jango Fett. Not Boba Fett so much, but Jango had Mandalorian armor, but he had no problem showing his face to people. So that did raise a question there for me. Like, was he a true Mandalorian, or did he just have the armor that he used?
Yeah, no, a true Mandalorian is somebody who believes in the creed and the ideology. It's not tied to um, genetics. So technically, what I was saying earlier is, like, technically, Baby Yoda can actually become a full-fledged Mandalorian.
Yeah, exactly. But Jango had the armor, but he was, from the prequel trilogy, he had the armor, but he was showing his face all the time. So I'm guessing he was not like bound to the creed. He just kind of used the armor.
You, eh, eh, so the rule is you can show your face to family members, because otherwise, having babies would be a little like, oh yes, your helmet is so clank, so
I was kind of
enjoyable.
picturing that, like, yeah, let's not go down that rabbit trail. But no, like when Obi-Wan shows up at Jango Fett's, like when he's on that planet where they're creating all the clones, and he meets Jango, and he doesn't know it's the bounty hunter that he's like, he doesn't know for sure, but he,
Yeah.
Django's got his armor off, and he's just like acting like any other person. So anyway,
I think that might have had something to do with him not wanting to blow his cover, ish. Again, I know it is kind of messed up, but that's also a Hollywood thing, right? In Hollywood, I think we talked about this recently. In Hollywood, the concept of having a show or having a movie or having anything like that where you have your face covered is not something that 99.999% of people in that industry would ever allow. And how dare you even insist that my beautiful actor who I represent, who we're getting paid a lot of money for, how dare you insinuate that he needs to be not showing his face every 5 to 10 minutes. I mean, there are characters who drop from movies because they don't get a certain X amount of screen time. It's like, what? You're not giving me screen time? Well, screw you. I'm out of here. It's like,
yeah, well, yeah, it's kind of it's this
They're-
old school Hollywood way of thinking.
yeah. It is old school, and it is kind of like tied to previous versions of that, and often what you find is people who are more flexible actually have more like staying power, because who knew that the artistic vision is actually important for some of this stuff. So yeah, I think that's, to me it's fine. Like, to me, I think that's something that I don't dwell on a lot, because it's one of those things where it's like, I can see why. I don't exactly like favorite, but yeah, I could see why.
Mm-hmm. N7 Myth in the chat, though, sort of has an explanation. So Django was an imposter. He wasn't from Mandalore, and he didn't follow the creed. He just wanted the mystique and respect that Mandalorian armor brought. It was also not Beskar, but Durasteel. Okay, interesting. I figured it was something to that effect, just because of there was such an emphasis on this creed, and I'm not allowed to take my helmet off in front of others, and if I do, I can never put it back on again. Like, which I'm curious about why that's the case, but anyway, it's very interesting. But yeah, overall, like,
It is one of the things that it's one of those things that I do question, but yeah.
well, I mean, it works. Like, it's Star Wars is a huge universe. You've got all these different cultures and belief systems and people and different alien types, and like they did the character development was done so well in the show, in the Mandalorian.
That is, yeah. See, to me, it's like that's actually the one thing that I don't like about the Mandalorians, is that whole like, oh, I can never take the helmet off thing, because it's like what if you need to itch your nose? Like, seriously.
Well, they can take it off in private. They just can't let other people see their face.
But it's like I don't know. It's one of those things where I like what they're doing with it, but just from a general like perspective, it's the only thing that's kind of like, it's the only like I get it. I get it. I get it.
Well, I just kept thinking, like, wow, it must get hot in there. Yeah. Anyway,
Clearly.
maybe it has a cooling system built in. It's very high tech after all. But yeah, overall, like, if you're a Star Wars fan, definitely recommend the show. Definitely recommend, you know, yeah, get the Disney Plus subscription. Actually, you can get it like free for a week and binge the show if you want.
Yeah, they're. We suspect strongly that their numbers are going to drop quite significantly, but I think they've done enough that they're like, "Hey, look, we can do this. This is good. You'll like this. It's gonna be awesome." So yeah, I think that's fine.
So yeah, like Disney, don't screw with this formula. Like Kathleen Kennedy's name is on the show as an executive producer, but this was Jon Favreau's baby.
Yeah,
He was working on another Disney movie, like The Lion King or something, the live action remake, I think it was. And he was staying late after after sort of the production day every day. He was staying late and developing this show. Like he sort of built it from the ground up, and obviously he has done something right here. So don't screw this up, Disney. Don't just say, "Oh, that looks profitable." Yoink. And so keep going. Now, yeah, there's rumors. Okay, maybe Jon Favreau will be in charge of a trilogy or da da da. I mean, I don't know how much of that will come to fruition, but clearly what they did with the movies did not work, and maybe that's not maybe bringing in big name directors to produce these movies was clearly that was a bad choice. Basically, you need a Star Wars super fan. Basically, a true nerd, like Favreau seems to be. I mean, he did what he did with the Marvel Universe worked really well, and what he's doing with Star Wars seems to work really well. You need somebody who really isn't going to bring in their own interpretation of what this is. No, that's not what's going to work. What's going to work is where, like we were talking about with Cyberpunk, what is Cyberpunk? What is Star Wars? And stay true to that. That is what's going to work. And The Mandalorian does that very well. And hopefully Disney learns its lesson from that, and we get good Star Wars stuff going forward. But this has got me, because there's, like you mentioned, there's tie-ins with the other shows. This has got me wanting to watch Star Wars Rebels. I have not checked out that show yet, but I've heard it's really good.
yeah, no, it is, and I think just in general, the that whole concept of that side of the universe is flowing a lot better. And again, this is where a lot of people were like originally assuming that the storyline would kind of lead to in the movies, and then they were horribly disappointed because apparently nobody can put two brain cells together over at whoever's working on the movies there. So yeah, but no, I think if if the movies had been more like the Rebels and that whole side of things, I think it would have gone over a lot better.
Yeah.
Because I mean that it had flushed out story writing, intelligent design, it had a coherent package, and you just don't get that. Just don't get that in what they currently have. It's just a joke at this point.
And Seven Myths says, you don't just need a super fan, but also a master storyteller. Yes, absolutely. That, yeah, you need someone who's good at what So yeah, you need a Star Wars fan in there who appreciates Star Wars for what it is, but also is really good at telling a story.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Bagheera says, if the movies had been planned, that would have been better. Yeah, well, exactly. There was no plan going in.
Nope. It was
Abrams set up all these story threads in Episode 7, not knowing where they were going to go, and then Johnson just was like, screw all that. I'm going to do something different. Yeah. Polly's says Rogue One is a good example of what Star Wars movies need to be. Yeah, I enjoyed Rogue One quite a lot.
I didn't like them butchering the storyline, and I get that they were with the limitations. I get that, I really do, and I do like that they tried to do stuff here and there. But it's like that was my all time favorite power couple, and they kind of wrecked that. And
well, you're talking about them deviating from the original.
Yeah. The Dark Forces timeline, like the Dark Forces timeline and story, and
sure, yeah, granted, but the movie itself,
and like especially Kyle Katarn, it's like that character is massively pivotal in the realm of like my growing up, and the fact that he's just relegated to this like character that just like, ugh, it's great movie, like as a whole, but just garbage.
Although that movie had its problems too, just with all the rewrites. Like you could tell. It seemed apparent to me anyway that that things got rewritten and they didn't fit together quite as well as they were hoping. Like the main protagonist character, like her character just changed partway through the movie, and it's like, what's going on? She's not the type to give this kind of inspiring speech.
Yeah,
and that seemed ham-fisted, but
that's something that where it's like it's always tempting. It's always tempting to do a big, powerful speech, and something that has lots of weight, but they have to like earn that. They've got to get to the point where they earn that, because you can give a lot of inspiring speeches and most people will never pay attention to that. So yeah.
All right, I think that's the show for today. So thank you so much, everybody, for the great conversation in the chat. Thank you for tuning in live, and if you're listening after the fact, we appreciate you being there as well by supporting the show live or after the fact. Don't forget to slam that like button before you leave. We really appreciate that. If you're listening after the fact, leave comments below. Also, subscribe to the channel for tons more content. Lots coming in 2020. Cyberpunk coming this year, so it's going to be exciting. Thank you to our Patreon supporters and channel members who help make this content possible. Our big damn heroes over on Patreon, Old Man Manson, and our 2 anonymous supporters over there. Our channel members, Jason Cropper, Mr. Padzernick, Jer Schultz, Game Notes, Paul Young, Night City Punk, and Terror K. If you're listening after the fact on SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, or any of the other platforms that this podcast goes to, we appreciate your interactions there as well. And don't forget that you can join the live show on Wednesday afternoons and Saturday mornings. That's North America time. It's slightly different in other parts of the world. You can see the Discord server for exact times and schedules. But if you listen to the live show, you can interact with us and be a part of the discussion, which is always a fun time. The Augmented Reality Podcast is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, and tons more quality gaming content. My name is Ash. On behalf of Cyb, thank you all so much for listening, and we'll talk to you again very soon.